Now it's time for Lefties Losing It, and let's start with the perpetually outraged ladies of The View. They never fail to bring copious amounts of bile and hate, and one of their targets of late is White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Here is Whoopi Goldberg saying she only got the job due to wokeness. What?
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
No, Whoopi. Corinne Jean-Pierre got the job because of wokeness. You and your old mate Joy Behar may have your jobs because of wokeness, but do not smear a competent professional woman like Karoline Leavitt with your nonsense, and don't lie about this being her first job. We know what you're doing there. And I mentioned Joy Behar. Here is Joy objectifying the White House press secretary, saying she only has the job because she's hot.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
You know what? She may be a 10, but she didn't get the job because of her looks. And anyone who has observed her at a briefing can figure that out for themselves.
What matters to this president and this administration is how well you can do your job, and the American people agree with that sentiment. So it's about competence, skill, and merit. And so the president is focused on ensuring that the most competent individuals, the best and the brightest in this country, are in positions in this federal government.
And one last point about Karoline Leavitt: the manner in which she answers questions is often masterful compared to what we've witnessed in the past. It's succinct, it's accurate, and guess what? She doesn't need 3 big binders to come up with the answer.
Can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws, and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
What a notion. You break a nation's laws and you're considered a criminal. But back to The View, and here we have the deranged with hate Sunny Hostin blaming Donald Trump for the American Airlines crash. Here she demonstrates that not only is she beneath contempt, but she has absolutely no idea what any of these organizations do.
Trump fired the heads of the Transportation Security Administration and Coast Guard, and he also eliminated all the members of a key aviation security advisory group. The Aviation Security Committee will technically continue to exist, but it won't have any members to carry out the work of examining safety issues at airlines and airports. I think that is very telling, that when, voters decide that they want someone to blow things up and they want someone to blow up infrastructures, this is the result.
Let's check in now with the Democrats and see how they are handling this enormous loss. Are they abandoning that woke craziness that made them unelectable?
The rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender.
Yeah, that's going to fix it. Now let's check in with a trans activist and see how they are dealing with the return of meritocracy. The answer is they're not doing well.
Did you know that DEI bans would extend to medical schools as well? Hi, my name's Delia. I am a transgender and intersex medical student, activist, and educator. DEI in medical education is not just about ensuring that we have physicians from diverse backgrounds. It's also about ensuring that we're learning about diverse populations and making sure that we are prepared to care for patients from the populations around us.
I am a transgender and intersex medical student activist, maybe among the most terrifying words in the English language. Here's a clue. The last thing any sane person is looking for in a medical professional is diversity. When you're going in for life-saving surgery, the last thing on your mind, unless you have a death wish, is, oh gosh, I hope the surgical staff look just like me and think just like me. Put it aside, it's done, it's over. And there'll be plenty more Lefties Losing It content with my next guest. And let's start with promises made, promises kept. President Donald Trump is not messing around. It is clear that he and his team have been working for years to ensure that this time around, the bureaucracy does not white ant every policy, every objective the American people voted for. The president's executive orders have been meticulously planned, and he is ensuring institutions corrupted by far-left ideology are going to be cleaned out. And to complete the job, he needs the likes of Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard to be confirmed. Here is Tulsi talking about the extent of the corruption at the FBI and intelligence agencies.
The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice. And yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation, specifically to help Biden win the election. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible.
Joining me now is Newsweek's senior editor-at-large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, looks like justice is coming. John Ratcliffe is now running the CIA, and the jig will be well and truly over for the deep state if Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard are confirmed.
Yeah, Kash Patel is going to bring some much needed justice to the deep state, Rita, and God willing, Tulsi Gabbard will do the exact same there. The deep state has been plaguing Donald Trump, as you heard there from Tulsi Gabbard, quite literally since within the first weeks, not even the first months, but the first weeks after he first came down that gilded escalator at Trump Tower in the summer of 2015. Operation Crossfire Hurricane literally goes back to that presidential campaign cycle there. We all remember that infamous text message between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok talking about how the FBI was a fail-safe mechanism where the FBI could try to throw the election to Hillary Clinton if need be. Obviously, thank God that failed. And the rest, as they say, was history there. But whether it's Jim Comey, whether it's Christopher Wray, just one after the other, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, all the various tentacles of what we call here the national security state have been engaged against not just the Republican Party, but against the American people there. What Tulsi Gabbard said there in that clip we just saw is one of my favorite things that people don't discuss. Tony Blinken actually was the Biden-Harris campaign staffer that assembled that 51 deep state spook letter with Jim Clapper and Brennan and all the rest of the usual suspects. It was actually Tony Blinken who was the point man who organized that letter, and then he basically laundered it over to Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey. They used that as the fig leaf to censor the Hunter Biden laptop there. Tony Blinken obviously has been Secretary of State for the past 4 years. Thank God he's out of office there. The rot is really deep is the point there. Kash Patel is going to bring much needed transparency, justice. I want to see mass resignations, and if those mass resignations do not transpire, then God willing, we'll see some mass firings.
Let's hope so. And I do wonder what all this means for the likes of John Brennan, Mark Milley, James Clapper. More than one, you could argue, has been caught lying under oath and not really faced any consequences, Josh. Is there going to be a reckoning for some of the biggest names in this entire catastrophe?
I think that prosecution for perjury is entirely fair game. If there is real evidence to suggest that someone perjured themselves and it's within the statute of limitations, then 100% that absolutely should be fair game. Jim Clapper and John Brennan have absolutely, based on what I could tell, they have perjured themselves because they have said a lot of things which they certainly knew were not true, such as that the Hunter Biden laptop story was just Russian disinformation. No one actually thought that. That was not a real thing. No one who actually has worked in the intelligence services, who knows what foreign intelligence looks like, no one actually thought that that was the case there. It was all made up. It was literally just a psyop, a psychological warfare information operation to throw the election from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. And God forbid it was actually successful, because Joe Biden did win that election there. But again, it's 4 years later now. The American people have had another say, and it's time for justice in the deep state, Rita.
Now, the DNC is in all sorts of trouble, Josh. They seem to be in complete denial about why they lost so badly.
How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat? Okay. So that's good. You all passed.
Josh, those were the candidates for the DNC chair, I believe. All just seem to be obsessed with race, gender, the idea that America is some sort of systematically racist, sexist country. And the Democratic National Committee has elected a new vice chair. It's far-left activist David Hogg, who has called for the defunding of the police, who wants ICE abolished. They just don't get it, do they? I mean, they seem to be doubling down on the insanity.
The funniest thing about David Hogg, besides the fact that he's literally like 25 years old, and he's now the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, but the funniest thing besides him is that as Greg Price, who is excellent on X, as Greg Price pulled up, David Hogg himself actually put out a tweet back in, I think it was the year 2022, where David Hogg actually said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this is a close paraphrase, he said, "I am political poison. No one wants to touch me because whoever touches me is just going down with the ship." He literally tweeted this. And then the Democratic National Committee names him vice chair of the entire party less than 3 years later. I mean, you can't make this up. I mean, this is basically a Babylon Bee headline here, is what the Democratic National Committee has just done. But that other clip with Jonathan Capehart, the Washington Post MSNBC guy, who here believes the racism, misogyny was the reason that Kamala Harris lost the election here. Look, at this point, I think we have enough data points to indicate that Democrats aren't going to learn anything. At this point, we have seen enough, whether it's Sunny Hostin on The View, who said the exact same thing literally 2 days, the Thursday after the election. She was there on The View. She was saying, obviously, it was sexism, xenophobia, transphobia that cost this election. She even got her co-host on The View, Alyssa Farah, who is a rhino, if there was ever a rhino out there, someone who has the worst case of Trump derangement syndrome, all of mainstream American television. Alyssa Farah even chimed in and was like, "Are you kidding me? That's a little bit much even for me there." But whether it's Sunny Hostin, whether it's Jonathan Capehart there, we now see that they're not going to get it. And the reason that they're not going to get it, Rita, is because it would force them to actually disavow everything that the post-2008, post-Barack Obama party has stood for when it comes to DEI, intersectionalism, this rainbow coalition of the oppressed. They would have to repudiate all of it and go back to the old Harry Truman, John F. Kennedy style working class blue collar party. They're not ready to do that. But you know what? As a conservative, I say that's awesome. I love it.
Well, they still have the media and celebrity class backing them. That lot continue to attack Donald Trump and his policies. Let's hear this considered take from mega star actress and songstress Selena Gomez.
I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do.
Oh dear. And Josh, you mentioned The View. They are even seeking to blame Donald Trump for the American Airlines crash with a Black Hawk helicopter. This may be a new low for The View.
Trump fired the heads of the Transportation Security Administration and Coast Guard, and he also eliminated all the members of a key aviation security advisory group.
Oh dear. It's clear, Josh, that she has absolutely no idea what any of those bodies do, or she wouldn't make a complete fool of herself mentioning them in relation to this crash.
No, she obviously has no freaking clue whatsoever what is going on. None, because there are not many brain cells, frankly, operating there between the two ears, so to speak. There, what happened here? Rita, I was actually in Washington D.C. when this happened. I actually flew out of Ronald Reagan National Airport less than 24 hours after the crash. It was kind of eerie being there so soon after, actually. But what happened here was apparently there was just a screw up when it came to air traffic control. There was one person who was who was tasked with assigning both the helicopter and the plane routes there. But the point is, when your instinct is not actually look at the facts, not actually look at what went wrong in this very particular situation there, what actually happened in the communication between air traffic control and the helicopter pilot and the commercial airline pilot there, when your instinct is just to try to find some exogenous, not related at all data point and then try to impute it to the president of the United States, you have lost your mind and you have lost your ability to engage in anything remotely resembling logical reasoning. And frankly, if there was any merit and justice in the marketplace, you would probably be out of a job when it comes to talking head punditocracy and media commentary, because she's not contributing anything to the conversation. But yet again, as we were just saying there, they're just doing the same thing here. It's just they've learned nothing, Rita. Like the Bourbons of old. You know, there's that old Talleyrand quote. Talleyrand famously said, like the old Bourbon monarchs in France, they have learned nothing and forgotten nothing. America's fourth estate, our mainstream media, are like the Bourbons of old. They have learned nothing. They have forgotten nothing.
Well, there's a great deal of argument at the moment in the US that there should be some further cuts made to bodies like NPR, because you talk about the fourth estate. At least when you look at The View, it's privately funded. If some fool wants to plough their money into that enterprise, good luck to them. But when you've got taxpayer-funded media spewing out lies and divisive race, gender, trans ideology, really, what justification is there for that funding to continue, Josh?
There's not. There is precisely zero justification for it to continue, whether it's NPR, whether it's PBS. There is simply no need for any taxpayer subsidization of any kind of media outlet here. I mean, maybe there was a role for that when in the very early days of radio, in the very early days of television, but in today's day and age, especially when a lot of people are cutting the cord in general, when they're cutting the cord when it comes to both radio and cable news, there people are getting the news increasingly online. Oftentimes here in America, there's just no need for the American taxpayer to be involved in this here. Ideally, this is the kind of thing that Doge under Elon Musk would actually look at there, is trimming fat like this. Conservatives have been saying this basically since the Reagan administration for the past 4 decades. Trump's the kind of guy who, he's the kind of guy who comes in there and he can actually hopefully get this done. I think it's a very good idea, frankly.
Now, before you go, there's some sobering data for the Democrats that confirms what we've been discussing. This polling is abysmal. Newsweek reports that enthusiasm for the Democrat Party has continued to plummet since the November election. The party is at its highest unfavourability level. We've got data here showing 31% of voters have a favourable view of the Democrat Party, compared to 57% holding an unfavourable view. Josh, this is precisely what we've been talking about. Nothing we have seen since November, since January 20, shows that they get what the problem is and they're going to go about fixing it.
They don't, and it's because they're elites. So the elites of the Democratic Party, the people like Sonny Hostin on The View, the people like Jonathan Capehart there on that stage there was this massive chasm. There was a gargantuan galactical chasm between Democratic Party elites and the mainstream American citizen, like the so-called deplorables of Hillary Clinton, the bitter clingers, Barack Obama. But even on the left side of the aisle, even on the Democratic side of the aisle, there is a large chasm between Democratic elites and the everyday median Democrat there. And until that chasm is shrunk, until they find some way to focus yet again on blue-collar, working-class economic issues, by the way, economic issues that I may or may not personally agree with, but at least they'll be focused on the actual day-to-day concerns rather than focus on these abstract, pseudo-academic, Marxist claptrap, gender, racial, immigration, immigration theory garbage, the likes of which the American people are basically just flipping two middle fingers at them consistently. And I don't know at this point what the heck has to happen. I mean, do Republicans need to get 70 U.S. Senate seats? Do they need to get a 30, 40 seat advantage in the U.S. House? Do they need to get like a 9-0 advantage in the United States Supreme Court? I don't know, honestly, what it's going to take for them to get the message. But hopefully at some point, I don't know, Reed. I mean, they're not going to learn, honestly. And yet again, as a conservative Republican, I'm pretty happy about that.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Rita.